Dice, yeah, ay, ay.
Every once in a while, you meet someone who takes these huge cosmic concepts, consciousness, awakening, healing, and somehow makes them feel simple. Today's guest, Dean Graves, is exactly that kind of person. Dean describes his early life as remarkably unremarkable, just cruising along until age 50 when a quiet shift inside him opened the door to meditation, self awareness, and the deeper understanding of who we really are underneath all the identities we build. And here's the twist. Dean doesn't present awakenings as lightning bolts or mountaintop moments. He talks about it like finding out your favorite ice cream flavor. You only know what you like because you've tasted what you don't. That's his gift, taking big truths and making them human. In this episode, we explore identity, trauma, meditation, spiritual growth, and even the possibility that the universe is a whole lot busier than we think. But we do it in Dean's way, with clarity, humor, and the grounded wisdom of someone who has lived both the ego driven life and the awakened one. If you ever wondered why you think the way you do, why certain stresses keep repeating, or why awakening sometimes appears right when the life feels upside down, this conversation is absolutely for you. Welcome to FYI Am Damaged, where the healed, healing, and others share their wisdom. Meet Logan, the strong minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless, it's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strengthen their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within. Dean, you described your early life as remarkably unremarkable. For a shift at age 50 led you into meditation and consciousness studies. What prompted you to begin meditating and how did it transform your life?
A good question. I tell it was for me as it is for most everybody that comes to meditation at some point in their life. People come to meditation because they're running away from the stick. In other words, things in their life are not comfortable, in fact, possibly painful. And so consequently, they explore meditation is probably one of a myriad of options to try to alleviate their experience of the stick. Invariably, if you are persistent with it, it will be the panacea that you need or seek in order to alleviate whatever pain and suffering that you may be experiencing in your life, whether it be physical, emotional, or mental.
How did your work as a mental health counselor and educator blend with your spiritual journey? Did one shape the other?
Eventually they did. It's not something that is part of any sort of academic training that you may experience. As humans, all have exactly the same purpose in life. There's no one that has a separate purpose or a unique purpose. We all have unique missions in life, though. The difference is your purpose is what you do to fulfill your role in creation. Your mission is how the methodology or the experiences that you like to, and the learning to use those to fulfill your purpose in life. Your description of my first 50 years are relatively speaking inconsequential, as they are for most everyone who has not had an awakening. And an awakening is an often misunderstood concept. Awakening is nothing more than that point in your life where you have the awareness that all the stuff that you've been doing, regardless of how it may be deemed to be successful from conventional standpoints are not making you happy. And so that point, that awakening can happen when you're 15 or it can happen when you're 90. Whenever it happens, it will happen. But up to that point, we, by design, are in the process of creating a false perception of self. This false perception of self can be called an identity, it can be called an ego, it can be called a hierophant if you want to be fancy. It's all the same thing. It is nothing more than a bundle of beliefs that we have either gathered by osmosis from the people that we associated with as we are going through life, or consciously accepted a certain or variety of beliefs that create this identity. And this identity is our perception of self. It's who we think we are. And we create this for the sole purpose of trying to trick the world into giving us more of what we like, because we're all motivated to get more of what we like, regardless of what that is. It may be totally unique to you. That notwithstanding, we are motivated to get more of what we like. The interesting point is that when we begin a lifetime, we have no idea what we like. And so we have to have experiences. And through having those experiences, we narrow down what it is that we like. I use the example, if you have decided that chocolate ice cream is your favorite flavor of ice cream, but there are 150 flavors of ice cream in the ice cream shop.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't just walk in one day and taste chocolate and say, that's my favorite flavor, and I'm not going to taste any of these other flavors. You got to taste almost all these other flavors, or at least by groupings, to eliminate them because you've tasted something else that you like better than that. And so during this period of our life where we're promoting this identity in order to trick the world to give us more of what we perceive that we like, we're getting a lot of things that we don't like in order that when we do encounter what we do like, that we'll know the difference, that we'll know what we like because we've experienced a lot of stuff that we don't like. We learn by analogy. We learn by comparison and contrast. All of consciousness learns by comparison and contrast. And so we're constantly having experiences, and we're judging every new experience against our entire resume of experiences up to that point, and throwing out the old stuff that doesn't please us the most anymore, and adding new stuff or modifying this identity with every experience that we have.
I can definitely relate with you when you get to that point, because with the inception of my podcast is I was taken back to, I was doing some like independent contractor things called like Amazon Flex, and delivering packages and just making some extra money during the pandemic. And I was at the same place where one of my major trauma happened, delivering something, same building, same floor, just not the same apartment. And after I did that and processing, like, okay, wow, I'm here, this is where it happened. And after I was done, told my wife, hey, look, I'm all right, this is what's going on. I said, just give me a few hours to kind of decompress and process. And then all of a sudden, the whole idea of my podcast came to me. And it was, I always say it was like a little spark that just said, boop, right in my head. And like the muse type of deal, everything came to me. What I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, what I wanted to put on display, what I wanted to garner from my guests to put out for other people, even the name, it just came in a flood. So, and everything before that really didn't have purpose. So that's like one thing I connect with. This is something that I have never been able to let go. I've done other things, I've tried other ventures, and this is something that I would definitely give up my IT career for once I get it to the spot to make it more monetized. I released a children's book that actually came from doing this podcast and going through my journey of trying to process my trauma and what has happened to me on many different levels. So that's something I definitely connected with, because I've been through that. I mean, I don't know if I look it, but I'm 47. So
No, you don't. Yeah.
thank you.
You're a young 47.
I appreciate that. And always I was always on the lookout, like, what is life for me? What am I supposed to do? So maybe I called that to myself, and when I was ready, I was ready. And it's just been, since 2022 has been It's connected me to so many things that I'm glad it happened. I'm glad I found my passion. And I always encourage other people to do that as well. I feel like you kind of have to meet it halfway. It's there for you. It's waiting for you, but if you don't put in the effort and the experiences as well, you have to reach a certain level to be like, okay, now I'm eye to eye with it. It's there, and that connection will be made if you make the effort, I feel.
Well, what you're talking around is when you had your experience, obviously that was a trigger point for you, a transitional
Yes.
point in your life. Up to that point, you have probably been using, you will undoubtedly have been using awareness, but the awareness is directional. And the awareness was pointed outside of you. And so you were defending and protecting an identity as you were going through. The trauma caused you to have, relatively speaking, an awakening. And what happens when you have an awakening, the same awareness that heretofore had been pointed outside of you becomes inverted. And so you become aware of what it is inside of you that you need to become aware of to change, because it's the only thing you can change is you. And so that's usually when people find their mission. It was for me. Mine is a little different from yours, but not significantly. But that awareness is the healing tool, is both the discovery tool and the healing tool itself. Because once you discover what is perpetuating your stress and suffering, you're not going to just let it sit there. You're going to change it.
And that's actually what happened, because this actually set the stage for my journey to heal and release that actual trauma to actually deal with what was underneath. It introduced me to the individual and their group and their retreat process that actually out in Vermont that helped me finally face it
Mm-hmm.
and know that, you know what, I'm not forgiving the person and what they did to me. I'm forgiving myself for putting myself through that for decades,
Mm-hmm.
4 decades, and finally releasing that anchor and just having to deal with everything else that's just been right underneath the surface because I put that in the forefront. I put that
Mm-hmm.
in the forefront. That was me. That was, you know, woe is me. I'm the victim. Feel sorry for me. And all those other things that come through a person that doesn't put themselves on this kind of healing journey.
Well, if nothing else, it makes you aware of that there is a healing journey
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff to be healed.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't even have the awareness that there are things that need to be healed. And part of the problem is we perceive that as we go through life and have experiences, we're learning about other people, places, and things. And that's not true. We're interacting with people, places, and things, but we're learning about ourselves in relation to people, places, and things. So they are simply bringing us the mirror of what it is inside of us that we need to become aware of and either emphasize and keep or get rid of. And that getting rid of is the healing part. That is for everybody the same process. There's nobody that has a unique process. It's something that we all must do in order to experience greater happiness, because healing allows us to experience less stress. And stress is anything that you don't like. It can be, and that is a huge spectrum. If you like cream in your coffee in the morning, but one morning you're out of cream, so you had to drink your coffee black, it's a very minor stress, but that notwithstanding is still on the spectrum. The opposite end of the spectrum are those things that we deem to be traumatic. And those are the traumatic because they challenge the authenticity of our identity to such a point that we're unable to adjudicate whether that experience is good for us or not good for us. Healing trauma is something that I focus on in my practice, but we perceive an experience to have a certain period of time that it covers 30 minutes, an hour, some period of time. And we perceive that to be one experience. But the reality is that those perceived experiences are comprised of dozens of thoughts. Every single thought is in and of itself a complete experience. And we are obligated as humans to make a decision about every single thought before we can move on to the next thought.
Right.
When we encounter an experience that so challenges the authenticity of our identity, then that particular thought becomes irreconcilable for us at the time, and we enter into a condition of shock for that one thought. We can't make that decision of I like it or I don't like it. It feels good or it doesn't feel good, because literally our awareness leaves our body for that one thought. And so it leaves a gap in our perceived experiences, and it makes the whole perceived experience to be, in our estimation, traumatic. But it's actually only that one thought, and there can maybe more than one thought in a perceived experience, but I've never encountered anybody that had more than 5 thoughts in a perceived experience. Usually it's only 1 or 2 that makes the whole perceived experience to be deemed traumatic. And so healing traumas is really not difficult. It takes about 10 minutes to heal a trauma. People have the tendency to create behaviors to compensate for that gap in their flow of experience, and that's called PTSD. But it's post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that actually requires more time to realize what you've created and to dissolve those. But once the traumatic experience is gone, it becomes much easier to reconcile those distorted behaviors that you've created with the PTSD.
I can definitely, yes, relate to that, because everything that I put myself through after that, I was able to, once that acknowledging it, processing it, and releasing it, then everything else I put myself through, I don't do it anymore. And
Don't need it anymore.
exactly. And yeah, that's just been my experience. And I wish people do get curious about having that sort of release from their trauma, so that they can get on that post-processing and really get on that journey to heal. That's really what I want, talking with individuals like you and letting them know that don't be afraid to heal. Why is it so? I guess because it's not something that's been normalized. And, now what I'm curious about is, when you were booking this interview with me, when you said, is that something that's a philosophy that is centered around what you do, when you said like no one is damaged? And how did this understanding emerge from you, and how does it shape the way you meet others?
Well, I explain it this way. It is a process, and as an analogy, rose has multiple stages of its life. It is a rose bud, and then it's a full blossomed rose, and then it's a withered rose. It poses the question, which is the best phase of a rose? And most people would say, well, it's in full bloom, it's full blossom. But the reality is that those are not only just 3 phases of one rose, it is 3 different things altogether. It's a rose bud, it's a rose in full bloom, and it is a withered rose, each of which is perfect in the stage that it's in. We are perfect in the stage that we are in, even when you perceive that you're damaged, which is nothing more than a mindset. If you realize that there is no stage of your life that is better than the other, when you're experiencing stress and suffering and those periods, that is the most intense opportunity for you to do the most dramatic healing. And if you take that attitude that this is an extreme period of my life where I have the greatest opportunity to heal, to get rid of these distortions of perception that allow me to emerge on the other side as a much happier human being, then it's a whole lot easier to contend with the distortion that are causing you suffering at any one stage in your life.
Yeah, because I have a lot of people that they're in their different stages, and I recognize that, and I kind of see, and then also if I'm in that space to give them advice or give them guidance, and instead of getting upset when they don't take it, I just look at them like, you're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You're not in the space of, we have some friends, and some of them are really going through it, and with how they perceive life, how they think they should be perceived or be treated, and also how they don't handle themselves in a proper way, but yet they expect something like remarkable in return. I'm like, okay,
Well,
but you're not ready yet.
we're schooled primarily by religion but other ways as well that we need to be saved. And we are our own Savior because we created the condition that we're in. And what is difficult to people for people to understand that no experience, no thought comes to us with emotion on it. Every experience is absolutely neutral of any emotion. We interpret every experience according to how we are at the time that we process that thought or those thoughts in a perceived experience. And so when you realize that, then you can take control of your experiences and get the benefit from it that it is affording you, whether it is a reinforcement of something that you need to keep or something that you need to heal. But we are magnetic. We attract the experiences that we need in order to fulfill the curriculum to move ourselves forward along the evolutionary path.
That it's so weird you say that because I always touch back on if I never was in the space that I was, I would have never created the podcast. I would have never. I've looked back on it, but then it's always more impactful when another person points it out. And going through that journey, if I never would have created this, I never would have leaned on friends and family to start interviewing first. Then my wife points out someone during the pandemic. They're doing I said the story before. They're doing a presentation for a school event on Zoom. My wife goes, "You need to speak to her. You need to interview her." And I'm like, okay. I reach out to her. We make connections. We're still friends to this day. I meet her one who actually created the retreat with a couple of other individuals, and I'm like, I'm seeing my ride and reflecting on it, and I do attach a couple of little bit of emotion to it because it's from my perspective, but understanding what it is, and then like how you said, like, and then I took that to heart, even in the quick second where, like you said, it doesn't come with emotion. But that journey coming through, seeing it how it unfolded, I still attach, at least at towards the end of it, where it got me till now, is just more grateful than anything. So at least it had a positive spin on it, and that's what I would love to do for everyone listening to this, and again, getting curious about how to heal and hopefully find their own way to heal, whether it's through a story, someone like you, and working with you or the other individuals that I've interviewed, and it's very powerful stuff when you're ready to hear it.
It is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
You
just
can lead a horse
everything
to
you
water, but you can't make him drink.
exactly. And it's I'm glad I took the interview with you because it's more reflective than anything. So I appreciate it.
Well, you never know when someone's going to be ready for it. I mean, they may hear it today and then 10 years from now not do anything about it for 10 years. And then they have that, oh yeah, what was that they were saying back when? And they may have to revisit it, but that notwithstanding, they have the resources to rely upon to know what to do.
You have that moment of like, oh, that's what they meant. I love
Yeah, that Forrest Gump moment. Oh, yeah.
I love it. I love experiencing those moments. I'm like, and it just comes. It's like somebody's just like, see, this is what they meant. This is now you get it. Your brain finally caught up from what
That's
your ears
right.
heard so many years ago. And, um,
And
that's
everybody around you is going, duh.
definitely. And my wife, in a playful way, she gets upset at me but I feel because of going through everything that I've gone through and trying to stay positive and doing my best to be positive. Not trying, I'm doing my best. She's like, you get it. Sometimes you get it so quickly, and all this stuff happens, and your understanding and realization and processing of these things of your life and those around you. I said, well, I mean, I may not advertise it, but I love processing that information. I love understanding people. I love understanding what they're going through to point out to them like, hey, look, this is what's what. You're not seeing the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I yeah, I like doing that. I like doing that because I guess I'm in a role to be more of helping them say, hey, look, your path's right there. Maybe, I don't know, what do you think? And just get them going with it. And I've helped a few people along the way, and it's a good feeling. And I hope I get to help, a bunch more.
And that's what light is. You're providing light. Light is information. And the light is necessary to see the path and to be able to follow the path. And so as you affect greater healing, and this is, I do a lot of work with people that suffer from various addictions, and I encourage them to follow the 12-step program. And I encourage everybody to follow the 12-step program, whether they're suffering from an addiction or not, because it's a wonderful guide for experiencing healing. And as we're talking about this, the 12 steps will take you through that process one step at a time, and you go through it several times. So each time you go through it deeper, then your healing is affected more significantly than the last time that you did it. But it transforms you from being a victim to being a healer to being a teacher. And the 12 steps can be divided into 4 groups of 3 each. And so the last 3 steps are teaching you how to share, how to teach what it is that you learn by following the course up to that point.
And of course, you're referring to the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps, right?
Or NA, yeah, either way. It's virtually the same 12 steps.
Okay.
But yes, and their texts follow fairly significantly, introducing religious concepts in it. But you can, if you're opposed to that, you can take religious concepts out of it completely and make it completely secular, and it has the same effect. But it takes you step by step through the process of affecting healing.
Now, you've written several books on consciousness and identity. For those new to your ideas, how do you define consciousness, and why is this so fundamental to healing?
Well, because we are consciousness, and everything that we encounter is consciousness. Consciousness, by definition, is our creatorness intoxicated with free will. Free will is our distortion. It is something that has been debated by philosophers for centuries. Do we have free will or do we not have free will? But their arguments are predicated upon a misunderstanding of what free will is. We certainly have the choice to turn right or to turn left or whatever the choice is, but we only have that choice because we perceive ourselves as separate from others and from everything around us. Free will is our perception of separation. So our evolution through creation is the process of surrendering that intoxication that we perceive ourselves as separate. And so that is actually what we are healing. That is what makes this range of consciousness so intense. And when you understand that all is one, and that's called the law of one, there is nothing that is not one, that is not the creator. So the religious concept of a God is a misnomer because that presupposes a deity that is separate from you. That deity cannot be infinite by virtue of its perception, your perception of its separation. And so the process of evolution is the process of sobering from that free will intoxication, which we explore ourselves and we realize more completely, and this takes a long time to do, that we are the one infinite creator experiencing ourselves at this range of consciousness. And so not only do we create our own healing, we create our own distortions, which is the discomfort, the illness, the damagedness, whatever you want to call it, that we affect in order to use that tool to explore ourselves more completely and heal and move ever closer to our accurate perception of being the one infinite creator.
No, I get that, because I'm guessing how you would probably explain it is I'm using my light for individuals, especially with the name of my podcast, to get them curious to say, hey, I've actually had someone, while it was on display, look at the name, they read it, and they're like, I'm like, you all right? And he's like, no, it just brought up something. You want to talk about it? She's like, no, not really. And I'm like, okay. I said, well, I don't know what I said for verbatim, but it was basically, okay, when you're willing, if you're still here, great. If not, I hope it gets you curious. Something to the effect of, like, what I've always said is just hope it puts you on a journey, a positive journey, in a sense.
Yeah. And that's really the definition, positive or negative. If you're the Enlightenment is a path, it's not a destination, and it is synonymous with our consciousness, evolution as consciousness through creation. And if you're experiencing a lot of stress and or suffering, then you wandered off the path. If you're on the path, then you're experiencing greater happiness and you're healing. And that is the guide. You are your own guide. There are an infinite number of ways to approach healing or following the path, but your feeling about how you're doing, your degree of happiness, really, is the greatest measure that there is for you to determine the path that you need to take to affect your ambition of healing.
In your trauma work, especially with the military and veterans, what have you found most effective for rapid release and deep healing?
Well, I've been trained in some methods that were created by a Serbian psychologist by the name of Zvorad Slavinsky. And I've been trained in bukus of different methods, EMDR and all the popular catchphrases that psychology and therapists like to use. But the methodologies that Dr. Slavinsky created are so dramatically more effective than anything else out there, that I made the reference earlier in our conversation to heal traumas, the seed of the trauma itself, the actual seed of the trauma, not the PTSD, but the seed for the PTSD, literally takes 10 minutes, sometimes less than that. I schedule patients for 30 minutes, and I anticipate in that clearing at least 3 major traumas that they may have from over a lifetime that they've collected. Usually they don't have but 1 or 2, and they're gone completely, and they're just so overwhelmed in that feeling of lightness and just exuberance over not having that burden that they may have been carrying for a lifetime. And they're the most effective method by far of anything that I've encountered. One of the greatest difficulties that I have in promoting and proliferating the techniques is they're so simple, and they contradict prevailing thoughts of the profession, psychology profession, or the mental health industry, that they don't believe it. And so because they don't believe it, they won't use it. And because they won't use it, they don't get to see the effect that it has. But it has just universal effect, regardless of who they are. The less functional a person is, in other words, the more chaotic they are into their mental illness, the more difficult it is for them to focus their awareness. And that's necessary in order to affect healing.
Right.
So it takes longer for those people, but eventually it will have the same effect.
You often talk about stress and suffering as a universal human experience or experiences. What do you see as their root causes, and how can a greater awareness help us move past them?
Invariably, there's nobody that has a different cause. It's defending and protecting this false identity that we create. And understand that stress is the difference between our expectations and how things really are, which simply means if we were able to just enjoy our experiences as they really are, instead of through the lens of our expectations, we would no longer experience stress. The expectations come based upon our experiences, and we modify our identity in order to change our experiences with every experience that we have. And during this period of commonality that I was describing at the beginning of our experience, where we are not aware, when our awareness is pointed outside of us, then we're looking for salvation. We're looking for somebody to give us more of what we like. And it doesn't work that way. And that is the fruitfulness of that type of experience, to know what we don't like, to know what we will like when we encounter it. So when you have that awakening, what you're really doing, in addition to inverting that awareness, is you're taking responsibility for your own evolution and your transformation from experiencing what you don't like because of those expectations, the lens that you've created, surrendering that to simply enjoy life more as it actually is.
And seeing people, from what you said, it's like almost seeing people getting over or getting past that save me mentality. Like, I need to be saved, I need to be saved, I need to be handled, I need somebody to do this for me, or just basically that sort of mentality. And once they get out of it, it's like they seem like a new person, but they're on that they're on the path, like as you
Hmm.
said, and then you see the positivity come out and
Right.
all the progress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and in your explanation of your experience, you had made reference to yourself as for a period of time you felt yourself to be the victim. The irony is our task here is to become awareness. Everyone in this range of consciousness, sharing this range of consciousness, has that same curriculum requirement to become awareness, but also to prepare for the next range of consciousness that we will be graduating to once we learn the curriculum of this range of consciousness, and that is to do with awareness, do with love what we do with awareness. And so, what we're really doing is we're learning sympathy, which is the elementary step. And after we learn sympathy, then we will learn compassion. And when we perceive ourselves to be have an experience where we are the victim, what we are really doing, the victim is actually the teacher. The
right.
victim is teaching the perpetrator, giving them the opportunity to experience compassion and to experience sympathy in that
Mm.
situation, and thereby begin to heal themselves.
Can you give me 1 second, sir?
Sure, yeah,
Okay. Sorry.
it's
Okay.
okay.
Do you want to continue the point you were making?
No, I think I
Okay.
think I
Okay.
got it out there.
Gotcha. And I always worry about this, but I'm sorry if the questions get kind of repetitive or anything like that.
It's okay.
But I think something, if you would have to restate something, I think that would kind of cement it into my listeners and everything. So, because I'm getting a lot from this.
Good. Okay.
How do meditation and mindfulness equip people to navigate both everyday struggles and profound existential questions?
Okay. We exist in what I call the village. In the village are all problems. There are no problems outside of the village. When we are in our ego mind, this identity mind, then we are in the village. When we learn to meditate, then we allow ourselves to escape to the guru's cave. And if you ever have gone on vacation, you leave your work and problems to go on vacation. And if you're like me, you take 2 or 3 days to get out of that operational mode. And then you begin to enjoy your vacation, which is kind of like the guru's cave. When you come back to work, the same problems existed there before you went on vacation, but your perspective of them is entirely different. When you allow yourself to develop a meditation practice and allow yourself to escape to the guru's cave every day for a period of time, it's like going on vacation. So when you come back into the village for the rest of your day, then you have a entirely different perspective on the problems. And usually the problems are either no longer problems or you have an easy solution to resolve the problematic nature of that experience. Mindfulness is nothing more than developing your meditation practice adequately, that you learn to take that mindset that you learn and experience in meditation in the Guru's cave with you back into the village,
Right.
so that the problems no longer are deemed to be problems per se.
You mentioned the importance of purpose. Can you share your perspective on what that purpose is and how people can become more aligned with it?
Sure. We're doing it whether we're aware of it or not. The creation began because the one infinite creator had a desire, and that desire was that he should know himself or itself by experiencing itself. If you understand that if you're all that there is, you have no perception of self. There's nothing to compare yourself to. There's no mirror. There's nothing other than you. And so the process of creation began by the one infinite creator projecting an analog projection of itself that was undistorted from the one infinite creator, other than it was conceptual, number one, but it was also distorted with the perception of free will, which meant it perceived itself as separate from the Creator. All of creation is a reiteration of that initial step in order to create an analog projection. You and I, right now, are analog projections of our metaphysical self. Our metaphysical self is our enduring self. All of what we learn from an incarnation is accrued in our metaphysical self, and that is actually the portion of us that is evolving.
Your teachings often touch on big questions. Are we alone in the universe? What happens after we die? How can these spiritual perspectives offer comfort or clarity in times of hardship?
Well, when we don't understand our role, our relationship to creation, then we experience a lot of fear, and that is primarily because of lack of awareness and lack of information. And so as we get information, then that provides us with the opportunity to alleviate a lot of fear that perpetuates our wrong choices. When I say wrong choices, only because it causes us additional stress, and it leads us off into the weeds instead of following the straight and narrow path that leads us down the enlightenment goal, towards the enlightenment goals. So the more we learn, the more we experience, the more we develop our awareness, the more that we understand what it is that we're doing here, then the more control we have over our participation in creation, and the more focused we can become on affecting the results that we need and desire.
And for those individuals that would for the individuals that would just listen to this episode and they're like, nah, it's not that easy. He makes it sound so easy. But you have a lot of experiences behind this. And with these listeners feeling stuck or overwhelmed by life, what is a simple first step that they can take towards healing and on their path to, I guess, their enlightenment?
Spend some time with yourself, which is what most people actually absolutely fear doing. Spend some quiet time with yourself, and it doesn't have to be a meditative process initially. Work into that. Start at the basics and turn off all the electronics, and maybe turn off the lights and have a dim light, and just spend a few minutes with yourself and become aware of the thoughts. If they're not pleasant thoughts, then that's the first step of awareness, is realizing that they're not pleasant thoughts, but understand that you're attracting those thoughts. So what is it I need to become aware of that is attracting those thoughts, and let go? Beginning a meditation practice is the most effective healing tool that is available to us. If there's something that is more effective, it is totally unknown to me. The methods that I used to heal trauma and things of that nature can be tremendously beneficial in accelerating your progress, but ultimately those will expire their usefulness, and it was going to come back to your raw awareness, inwardly inverted, that is going to affect the greatest accomplishments in your
I want to get your perspective on it, because I have a friend who they do one of those sensory deprivation pods.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that if somebody were to do that and sort of self-focus on everything and their thoughts coming in and try to put themselves in a meditative state, like, is that a little too advanced, or
That's pretty
where
advanced.
would you gauge? Okay.
That's pretty advanced. For someone who has not begun the process, it doesn't really have a good perception of self. Sensory deprivation can lead to some psychosis experiences. And that needs to be, if you're going to do that, you need to do that with a guide, very experienced guide. Same is true with hallucinogenics. Hallucinogenics can be great additives to propel you along the journey. The problem is hallucinogenics, depending on which hallucinogenic and what your objective is, essentially give you a peek behind the curtain. And so it kind of gives you a peek, okay, well, this is where it's supposed to feel like, and so I need to do this, that, and the other until I can feel that without the hallucinogenic. But you don't want to use the hallucinogenic as a crutch in order to get you there. Same as the sensory deprivation is essentially a hallucinogenic. The effect is, and it can be dangerous. So I would caution people to be very practiced and professional about that, approaching that type of mechanism.
Well, I was definitely had it on the schedule to do, but I think I'll take a little deeper look in it since I haven't done it. But I mean, how would you gauge someone like me? Like, would I be ready for it, or
With
am
a
I going to
guide.
be?
Yeah, just have a guide there, somebody that's experienced that, to be a safe out for you. Make sure that they can pull you out of it if it begins to get too much for you.
In your view, how can our society and mental health systems better integrate meditation, mindfulness, and an understanding of consciousness?
Well, I've written 4 books, and I have 2 podcasts that their sole purpose is to provide people with information about consciousness and how they can affect healing in their own lives. As far as making it broadly a focus of attention of the general population, that's difficult because it is so contradictory to what is the prevailing hegemonies of our various cultures. But some things are going to be happening in the very near future, in the next 2 or 3 years, that are going to compel a lot of introspection and reassessment of prevailing beliefs and hegemonies.
And what would those be?
Well, I don't want to, there are several prognosticators that have given that information, but you had referenced our aloneness in the universe, and that's going to be more than proven that we can't, and it can no longer possibly be swamp gas. Shall I say?
Oh no, I've definitely that's a sort of a kind of side attention for me, like seeing all these like that UAP with the that was hit by the Hellfire missile, and then all these other ones that are coming out, and it's like, okay, what the hell are these? They can't explain it, and it's like, what is it to that even our technology can't really explain, and then we don't really know the full exact story. Not without
Yeah,
going down that rabbit hole. Yeah.
yeah. The Earth has been quarantined for a long time in order to protect us from intrusion by external information and sources. And that's all transformed. The dramatic changes taking place in the population, which would changes the trajectory of our growth and so forth. But we have been very slow in our evolutionary development. And there are lots of reasons for that, but notwithstanding, we have been kind of left to our own devices for a long period of time. We have, and I don't see this, do not have the capacity to float above the population and see where the population is, but they do. And so they are of the opinion that we are nearing a sufficient vibration that it would be beneficial to integrate us more completely into the galactic social structure.
Okay.
But the universe is a very busy place.
I could imagine it. And for somebody to not, even after all the, like, a percentage of a percentage of a percentage of what we kind of think what's out there, I don't think we have any idea.
It's beyond our comprehension how vast it is.
Yeah. And when I forgot who I told. I said, that there's an observable universe. I was like, what the hell you mean? I thought the universe was the universe. Like, no, we don't see everything. Even with all the technology that we have, we don't see everything. We just see how far we can see with what we have. So that's what we're observing. What's beyond that? Who knows? And even then,
I understand that there's that this perception of separation creates the perspective of distance, and there is no such thing as distance. There is no separation. It is all vibrationally different, and we have a very limited capacity to see things within a certain vibrational range, and that's hard for us to understand. But there's no such thing as motion. Motion is a distortion. Separation is a distortion. All of creation is made possible by distortion. And as we evolve, then all of that begins to dissolve. And so we don't have that intoxication of free will that creates the type of experience that we are accustomed to on Earth.
if you can leave the audience with one insider practice to carry forward, what would it be?
I repeatedly reiterate the teaching of Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. And as you do that, that requires constant reassessment and introspection, but it also makes you more aware of your interactions with the world around you. So it affects personal healing as well as promotes that healing in the world around.
So, Dean, where can listeners find your books, your podcasts, or reach out if they want to explore your approach more deeply?
Well, I will tell you that the books are all available on Amazon cheaper than they are in bookstores. So it doesn't matter to me where you buy them. But they're all available in the bookstores. I have a website The initial D, Dean, Dean, Graves, all one word, .org, and all of the podcasts, all of the books are referenced there, so you can get links to all of that from the website. And it also provides more information on the trauma work that I do, in effect the healing and other services that I offer too. So it's a central clearinghouse for what all I can offer people.
I'll make sure to provide links when the episode is up to make sure that they can go directly to you.
Great, I appreciate that.
Dean, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for giving me your time. I don't know what time it is in.
We're just reaching 6 o'clock, so we're an hour behind you.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you again, and who knows? Maybe I might reach out to you independently myself. I'm glad we had this conversation, and you've been an amazing guest.
You're kind. I appreciate that. This is my mission. So any way that I can help you in accomplishing your mission, I'll be happy to do so.
And I appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you.
If you're here at the end of our conversation, pace your next steps. Because what Stephanie shared wasn't just design talk. It was a reminder that healing doesn't always begin in your mind. Sometimes it begins in the personal spaces around you. Her story, from the starving artist years to discovering holistic healing, to realizing that safety and nervous system peace are the foundation of human growth, shows us something powerful. Your environment is either supporting your life or it's silently sabotaging it. When she spoke about neurodivergent families, about parents who had given up their boundaries, about children who need agency and adults who need to feel like themselves again, she wasn't just talking about design. She was talking about dignity, about identity, about the subtle ways we lose ourselves inside spaces that overwhelm us, and the quiet miracles that happen when we reclaim said spaces. And if anything you heard today made you look around your own home differently, good. Because you deserve a space that reflects your story, your culture, your nervous system, and your peace. You deserve a sanctuary. Not someday, not when your life gets easier, but starting with one small daily shift starting today. So take Stephanie's advice. Find the one object, color, texture, or memory in your space that makes you feel good and give it room to breathe. Let that be the first step in rebuilding your environment and maybe even rebuilding yourself. Until next time, keep choosing spaces that love you back. This is FYI, I am damaged. If Dean's voice left you feeling a little lighter, a little more curious, or maybe even a little more human, that's the point. He has this rare way of taking big, intimidating ideas and turning them into something you can breathe with. Today, he reminded us that stress isn't the enemy. It's a signpost. That identity isn't who you are. It's who you've learned to be. And that healing doesn't require perfection. Just awareness, honesty, and willingness to sit with yourself, even for a few quiet minutes a day. He also showed us that awakening doesn't mean escaping life. It means engaging with it differently, with less fear, fewer expectations, and a lot more self-compassion. And the best part? You don't need a mountaintop, a monastery, or even a meditation cave. You just need you, showing up for yourself. So if something you heard today nudges you even a little, follow that. Maybe meditate for 5 minutes, notice one stressful thought without judging it. Maybe just take a deep breath and remind yourself you're not broken. You're in a phase, and every phase is perfect in its own way. Adelante, siempre for tu mente. Forward, always for your mind. Thank you for listening to another episode of FYI, I Am Damaged. Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strength in their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.